Okay, this week New York City entered phase 2 of reopening. It's probably one of the last places in the country to advance this stage of the reopening. Phase 2 of the economy means that office workers can come back to work in their buildings now. However, as the title of this article pulled up suggests, that isn't exactly happening in large numbers. So here's the title: New Yorkers can now go back to offices, but many won't. I pulled up this article from the New York Times, as you can see. As the city entered phase 2 of reopening, subway cars and sidewalks were relatively empty, as many companies kept workers home. So this is the only relevant part of the article. Even as New York City has made significant progress fighting the coronavirus, its positive test rates now hover around 1%, down significantly from April. Many companies still see the virus as enough of a threat that they have decided not to bring workers back for months, if not longer. Again, around the New York City area, the virus is almost gone. I think what happened is that the virus was so widespread that there is now just enough general herd immunity so that the virus simply cannot spread in the summer. Even the large-scale demonstrations haven't caused a spike in cases. If that's the case, then there really isn't any significant threat from the virus anymore, at least until the fall when conditions might make the virus more spreadable. But the virus threat is not relevant, and yet most companies are still choosing not to send the workers back to offices. And I don't think the virus threat in and of itself is at enough of a level to fully explain why companies are simply not restarting their work activities in their buildings. So it continues. In a survey conducted this month by Partnership for New York City, an influential business group, respondents from 60 companies with Manhattan offices predicted that only 10% of their employees would return by August 15th. So if you're keeping your company's workers working from home for 2 whole months, when you're no longer legally required to keep them from home, you're doing it because the arrangement's working for you and you see no reason to change it. And if you're keeping your company's workers, again, home for 2 months when you don't have to, because you can legally do whatever you want to bring them to the offices, that means you're choosing to do it that way because it works for you. And if your workers aren't coming back within 2 months, or up to a year, then they're just not coming back at all. So, apparently from this survey, up to 90% of the workers working from home are never coming back. Or at best, 70% are going to be permanently work from home, and maybe another 20% will come into the office 1 or 2 days a week. So the vast majority of people who used to work in office buildings in New York City in various service and administrative jobs are just never coming back and are going to be permanently working from home. And this is important because now we have solid information for what is exactly going to happen with the office work and what proportion of the office work companies really want to bring back to be done physically, and what percent companies are comfortable just permanently leaving work from home. And from this data, we can now tell that over 80% of office work, companies are perfectly comfortable just leaving it at permanently work from home. Because if it were so important that they had to bring it back to a physical location, they'd be doing it immediately as soon as they can. The fact that they're waiting at least 2 months to even reconsider this, if not up to a year, means they're perfectly comfortable with the arrangement as it is now, and they're just going to leave it that way indefinitely in all probability. So several big media and technological companies with Manhattan offices had already extended their work-from-home policies through summer. Others have said employees can work remotely through the end of the year. Again, if you're going to be doing this for up to 3 months or a year, when you no longer have to, you're doing it because you're choosing to do it because you feel the arrangement's working for you, so you're going to continue doing this indefinitely. So, now that we have this data, because offices are allowed to officially reopen, we now have a good idea of what exactly is going to happen. And the vast majority of these jobs that have been work from home are going to stay that way permanently. We now have the knowledge and information that that's exactly of what's going to be happening now. So JP Morgan Chase said it would not send its employees back this week and had not set a return date, even though they can. And the fact that they aren't even beginning to rush to it means that they're comfortable with the arrangement and it's probably going to continue on indefinitely. Other financial firms like Goldman Sachs anticipated a small number of employees would return, but said most would not come back until well into next year. Again, if you're going to be doing this for a whole year, you're going to be doing this indefinitely. Because you no longer have to, yet you're choosing this arrangement for an entire year. That means you're comfortable with it, and you're not going to bother to shake things up once you're completely used to it. The real estate company Rudin Management Company said that it reached a collective 5.2% capacity across its 14 offices buildings that reopened. So you can now legally return to New York, and yet office buildings are only at 5.2% capacity. Mike Chapman, 54, a technology consultant, said he was happy to return to his office after 3 months of working in a small apartment with his fiancée, but he was only one of several employees to go back. Again, in these big metropolitan areas, probably about 60-70% of jobs are these office surface administrative jobs that are now possible to be done remotely. And if you're no longer tied to a particular metropolitan area because your job's now fully remote through your computer, what reason do you have to live in an insanely expensive metropolitan area? The answer is none. But he is only one of several employees to go back. It's not going to feel normal to be in the office. Again, how's New York going to handle things when 60% of its jobs disappear because they no longer have to be done physically in the city? And those are disproportionately the higher earning, higher paying jobs. The city's tax base is already down 60%. And if most of those jobs are now no longer physically in New York anymore, then most of that decline is going to be permanent. And if the office workers don't go back, a lot of service jobs dependent on the office workers physically coming into the city are also gone. Not only that, but also, once the jobs are gone, the vast majority of the high-income residents might no longer feel they need to physically live in the city anymore, because if their job's not there, why would they need to stay there? So they're also going to leave in large numbers too, and their service jobs to support the residents that live there are also going to go, and it's just going to be an out-of-control downward spiral. That's what the city's risking. And that's not even taking into account the fact that the recent disturbances are going to speed up the process even further beyond the rate at which it's already going to be happening, which would already be a huge and immense shift. It's not going to feel normal to be in the office, said Karia Lakhini, the chief people officer of Danslon, a software company with about 100 employees in New York. You can't socialize the same way. You can't really attend meetings in person. More than 100 cases of COVID-19 are still being reported each day in New York. Again, the virus isn't really a big factor in New York. It's only 100 cases. Because the virus was so widespread in the city, there's now a huge degree of herd immunity. It's not full, but it's enough that, combined with the fact that it's summer, it's stopping the spread of the virus. So the virus is no longer really a significant issue. And the fact that people are still choosing to keep the work from home arrangement in place isn't because companies are really super afraid of the virus. Because if they really had to keep the office arrangements that work best for them, they'd still rush ahead with doing it. They're keeping the work from home arrangement because it's working for them, and they're comfortable with it, and they see no reason to alter what they're already doing at this point. Worried about a surge in cases in states that move more quickly to reopen, New York, in officials are requiring that strict social distancing guidelines remain. Landlords of commercial buildings said that they had prepared to reopen by implementing new safety and cleaning protocols. So we're entering a huge shift. A majority of the city's jobs are probably no longer going to be physically located in New York, and like 80% of the city's pre-existing office space is probably just no longer going to be utilized. And with half the jobs gone, half the people in New York City who used to live there now no longer have to live there because of their jobs. So it's now completely possible for them to move to a new, more affordable location and still keep their same income. So we're entering a huge transformation. Not to mention that a large amount of the pre-existing retail establishments are no longer going to be present because they simply cannot compete with online sales, which received a huge boost because of the virus. So large amounts of the retail jobs that could still in theory exist because they still have the same residential market that's staying there no longer are sustainable because they simply cannot repeat with the new online retail and shopping. So a huge amount of the jobs, maybe a majority, that used to exist in the city are no longer there. Either they no longer exist entirely, or they're now fully remote and are no longer physically tied to a location in New York City itself, and the people can move to any place they want to and still maintain the same job. And as a side note, if you're no longer tied into any particular physical location for your job, some people are saying people are going to move to the suburbs. I wonder why would you, if your job's no longer tied to any physical location, I wonder why would you leave to in the suburbs? And a lot of places, the suburbs are almost as insanely expensive as a city, and you lose a lot of the benefits you have from living in a central city outright. So why would you move to the suburbs when you can move to a much more cheaper location that's further out? Or an entirely different area? That's my question. Ken Fisher, a partner in Fisher Brothers, which owns 5 office towers in Manhattan, said his building would use thermal scanners to check for temperatures of everyone who entered. So they're just talking about the spread of the virus itself. Okay, this is more about social distancing. So the main takeaway from this is that the vast majority of jobs which became work from home from the virus are going to stay that way permanently. So we won't fully know what's going to happen until sometime next year when the pandemic is fully over. But the information we're getting now from the very first phase of allowed reopening, when the virus is mostly under control in the New York area, is giving us good indications of what's going to be happening. So that's it for the article. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, go to my channel page for more videos, and share this video with anyone you think might be interested.